Yeah, yeah, yeah. Come on.
The anticipation is there to see if the Lakers can really steal one. It's crazy that we have that conversation now and how quickly that narrative has changed. That can the Lakers steal one compared to with Luka Doncic and Austin Reaves healthy? We were talking about them potentially winning a first round matchup against the Houston Rockets, or if they got matched up with Denver or the Minnesota Timberwolves. But right now, the focus is on can the Lakers get one at home and also potentially steal one in Houston. Also, the play-in tournament, if you guys have not watched that, it was off to a great start with the Charlotte Hornets, the Miami Heat, and then that Phoenix Suns game and the Portland Trailblazers. We're going to talk a little about that. I do have someone that I expect joining me real soon, and you guys are very, very familiar with them, and you'll see him in a little bit. But before we get into all of that stuff, you guys already know what I love to talk about the beautiful Pachanga Resort Casino, and you can play your perfect combination at Pachanga Resort Casino, the official Native American resort and casino of the Los Angeles Lakers. Skip the traffic. Head on over to Pachanga Resort Casino just off I-15 in Temecula. Visit pachanga.com or call 888 Pachanga for reservations and for more information. Man, play-in tournament was off to a good one. Now, I know everyone on social media was pissed off, especially what went down with LaMelo Ball, what went down with Bam Adebayo, LaMelo Ball getting tangled up, falling on the floor, tripping Bam Adebayo. I know a lot of people were upset about that, and that LaMelo Ball should be suspended. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm gonna sit here right now and tell you, I don't think LaMelo Ball should be suspended. Oh, we do have him. He is here. I just got a text. Mike Trudell is in here. I believe we can get you on the screen in a little bit, Mike Trudell. Just give our crew back there a moment. Um, he is here. Mike Trudell, what is going on? The Lakers sideline reporter. And you can always catch him with us at 710 ESPN Los Angeles. Trudell, what's going on, man?
My man, how you doing? What's happening?
I'm do- I'm doing really, really well. Just thinking about the playing tournament, just discussing that a little bit, and we also seen what has transpired throughout that game against the Charlotte Hornets and the Miami Heat. A lot of people have been upset due to LaMelo Ball tripping Bam out of bio, and they were coming for LaMelo Ball and saying that he should be suspended. What are your thoughts on all of that and how that game went down?
I don't think it was an incident that has to have a suspension. If it were somebody like Dylan Brooks or Draymond Green that has a history of doing things like that, right, and not necessarily intending to injure players, but just stuff that is over the line, I just think Lamelo, even the way that he described it, he just was not super locked in to what was going on. He flailed his limbs. I think that's just part of the whole LaMelo experience, and that chaos is almost the same way that he played in the game. He just happened to make one more good play than bad play.
Mhm.
So I don't think either one of those teams are very good. And Charlotte, it's been fun to watch them because of their style, but they're not a serious team yet. And I think
Yeah.
we saw that where Miami was almost able to beat them even without Bam Adebayo. They're fun, but they're not super serious. So it didn't take up a lot of time in my head. I just enjoyed watching the game and all of the crazy shot making late. And now Charlotte's got to win one more game to try and get into the
To the
actual
playoffs.
playoffs as the eighth seed. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I love watching them play because they play really, really hard. And like you said, just stylistically how they play, like Kobe White coming in there because Knipple, who his game has kind of dropped a little bit towards the end of the season. I know he went 2-12 last night, but we're seeing Kobe White being that veteran now and stepping into that role and him knocking down good shots. But it was cool. It was like I said, I'm a fan of the playing tournament. A lot, it's as
Yeah.
simple as that. And then we saw the Phoenix Suns game. We seen the Portland Trailblazers. I was really surprised that the Trailblazers came out there and they put they gave the Phoenix Suns a game and then ultimately ended up pulling off towards the end. I thought the Phoenix Suns was going to run away with that. They started to kind of have a little momentum heading into that second quarter. Were you surprised at all that the Portland Trailblazers came out on top of the victory?
No, I think Portland's better. I think they're more talented, they're bigger, and they're certainly better defensively, even though Phoenix has been a good defense all year. Phoenix to me is a team that they had a good start. They stayed about as healthy as anybody in the NBA. They certainly have a bunch of guys that play hard, and Dylan Brooks gets some credit for that. Jordan Goodwin gets some credit for that. Colin Gillespie gets some credit. And then their big guys are all just sort of try hard role player types, right? Where you have like the Oso Ighodaro. And that to me was a good recipe for regular season success up to a point. But I think we even saw this with the Lakers, and the Lakers saw the Suns 7 times if you include the preseason and the 5 regular season games.
Crazy.
And I think it was a little harder for the Lakers to look across there, and it's like, all right, you see Devin Booker, but other than that, there isn't a lot of just high end, top level talent that kind of gets you up for a game in a way that when you play the Lakers and you see LeBron and Luka and Austin Reaves out there in the purple and gold, and everybody gives you that a number one game. So
Mhm.
I thought that with Portland coming in and playing well, and since it's a one and done essentially game, an elimination game, that to me means that the effort level is going to even out, and Phoenix isn't going to be able to just sort of punk you or
Yeah.
play harder on a given night and then win because of that. And that it's a little bit similar to what we're seeing in the East, where like with Charlotte, they're once a team actually really stepped up their defensive game plan against them, all of a sudden you're not seeing a bunch of threes fall in. And Concanipple and LaMelo Ball are taking all these contested shots, except for Kobe White, as you mentioned, DeAndre,
Yeah.
who could not miss.
Yeah.
He was throwing flames out there. But so I think like that's what I love about the playoffs. That's what I love even about the play-in is that the cream kind of rises to the crop and
Mhm.
it rises to the top, I should say. And you
Yeah.
just recognize that it's not the same as just a given night in a regular season. And so Phoenix still has a chance, of course, to beat whoever wins between the Clippers and the Warriors tonight.
Yeah.
But if they do, then I think they're going to get crushed by the Spurs.
Oh, for sure. They're gonna get crushed by Oklahoma City, or if they were to they win that game,
Or
they get
excuse me,
matched up. But
thank you,
yeah,
Oklahoma City.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. It doesn't matter if they were to
Even worse.
advance. Yeah, even worse. But what everyone's been waiting for, and what everyone has been desperately for us to talk about, is this Lakers versus Rockets first round matchup. And we're
Yep.
getting to the
Let's
point
break it
where
down.
let's break it down. Everyone is just thinking as far as how can the Lakers steal a game? Maybe one in Houston, and how can they get one at home, of course, at crypto.com arena? It's going to be tough. Of course, we understand Luka Doncic and Austin Reaves are going to be out. What it looks like they're going to be out for the start of round one. Just kind of going over this style of the Houston Rockets and seeing how Lakers have had success against the Houston Rockets, especially those 2 games in Houston. The way they were able to defend, the way they were able
Yep.
to force the ball into Kevin Durant's hands, forcing them to have 7 turnovers, and making others on that Houston Rockets team beat them. Can Lakers replicate what they did in those 2 games in Houston and carry that over to this first round matchup against the Houston Rockets?
It's an interesting way that you frame the question because it's very difficult, obviously, to replicate what we saw in those 2 games, which were a lot of Luka Doncic and a healthy portion of Austin Reaves and the shot creation that those guys have in the half court. And that's where Houston is really tough. And if they get back and they get set, they've got enough big athletes that they can, for the most part, switch 1 through 5, with the exception of Reed Shepard. And the Lakers certainly took advantage of that. And then Şengün didn't play in the first game; he played in the second game. It's a little harder for them to switch 1 through 5 with Şengün as well. But if it's any kind of a matchup that's Tari Eason or Jabari Smith or Amin Thompson, right? Those are the 3 guys, and then Dorian Finney-Smith that are just super versatile. And if you get in the half court and you're trying to break them down, it can be difficult. On the flip side, when you have those guys in there, they don't have a lot of shot creation on the offensive end, and that's where we saw the Lakers, I think, really end up winning that game. Is that they just kind of stayed solid defensively. They blitzed Kevin Durant to a certain extent, got the ball out of his hands, and the Rockets just start throwing the ball all over the place. The turnovers in that first game, DeAndre, it was 22-11. That's how the Lakers won that one. And all of this is to say the Lakers can't just rely upon what they were able to do to score in those 2 games. So what do they have to do? JJ Redick was very simple. Take care of the ball and box
Mm-hmm.
out.
Yeah.
And I already kind of mentioned the turnovers, and I'll kind of kick this back to you because the boxing out part is where it gets a little trickier. Houston, they're the best rebounding team in the league. Offensive rebounds, number 1 in that as well, and that basically let them have be number 4 in possessions. right? Relative to the Lakers, who are 23rd in possessions. And that right there is the key. Like, if the Lakers are going to win, they're going to have to absolutely make sure that Houston doesn't dominate the glass. And I think they've got a chance to do that. Like, even though Luka, not having Luka there hurts because him rebounding from the guard spot is a big thing. But
Mm.
it's they're going to have to slug these things out, man. Like,
Yeah,
it's not necessarily going to be pretty. It's just like
yeah,
you got to want it a little more than them somehow, and hope that they disintegrate a little as their team chemistry. I don't think is the best, but
yeah.
it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, and it's crazy because Houston Rockets obviously they went on the heater towards the end of the season. They started to figure it out a little bit. They started to share the ball more. We saw their assist numbers start to go up towards the end of the season, and I think that's just due to them finally understanding the chemistry and actually being in the right spots. But I just keep on going back, and I get it. Luka Doncic, Austin Reaves were in that game, but just the way that the Lakers defended and able to throw out different looks as far as Kevin
Hmm.
Durant crossing the half court line and being able to blitz him. And you can see Kevin Durant being really uncomfortable by having the ball in his hands and trying to initiate the offense because Kevin Durant initially when he signed with the Houston Rockets, it was in mind that Fred VanVleet was going to be alongside with them. So his role definitely it changed throughout the course of the season. But I just keep on going back is that the Rockets don't have a real legit shot creator besides Kevin Durant. Like Ahmed Thompson is a guy he likes to move without the basketball. He likes to get into he's he can be aggressive at certain moments of the game, but that's not really his bread and butter right now. And then Alperen
Yep.
Şengün, I feel like with him is that he is a back to the basket guy, and we see him trying to step out a little bit. But if the Lakers can force him to be a jump shooter, hey, that's a win for them. Instead of him getting back to the basket, getting hook
Yeah.
shots, getting second chance opportunities like you mentioned. But also, I just feel like JJ Redick being able to throw out different looks, and Marcus Smart being in there with this Lakers team. We're probably hopefully we see a little bit more of Jared Vanderbilt because they're definitely going to need to utilize his size, his length, and his ability to be into the passing lanes. It's just I just feel like the Lakers. I feel like I'm not wrong, but I feel like this is still a winnable series for them. If just because the way that the Houston Rockets have, especially that 2-game scenario that we've seen, that was ideally a playoff setting if we want to be real. And the Lakers had success in that series. I mean, in that those 2 games in Houston.
Yeah, right. And of course, the main thing that they had in those two games that they won't have is their two best offensive players. I hesitate to say that some because LeBron can still be the best offensive player in the league on certain nights. And he, by the way, in these last three games, if you kind of the Utah second half he didn't play in, he's basically averaging 30, 10, and 8. Like the same numbers, a little bit less scoring wise because he's not shooting as much as Luka. Now, but when LeBron steps up and has to do that, though, he can't do quite as much of the role player stuff that he was
Mhm.
doing so well when those guys were in. So let's take a little bit of a closer look though at Houston's close because so after the Lakers beat them twice, they kind of stayed in this funk. They did beat
Mhm.
Atlanta, they did beat Miami, but then they lost at Chicago, then they lost at Minnesota in a crazy double OT game.
Mhm.
And then they went out, they rip off this big win streak. And I think from afar, you're looking at it and you're like, all right, wait, did Houston figure it out? And I really don't think they figured it out to be a serious team, a serious contender. I think they figured it out in terms of they had a pretty good floor that they were able to meet. So they beat Memphis by 10 on the road. As we know, Memphis trying desperately to lose, so you kind of
Yeah.
throw that one out. They beat New Orleans by it was a blowout. Şengün has 36. The Pelicans were sitting a bunch of guys. The one good win that they had throughout the stretch, they beat the Knicks pretty handily at home, 111-94. Then they beat the Bucks and the Jazz. Throw that out. They beat the Warriors, and that was the game where Steph returned, and it went way right down to the wire. They win by one, but it was kind of back and forth. And again, like Golden State is okay, they're not great. They may not even make the playoffs. Then they went at Phoenix. Phoenix still had a couple of guys out, but a decent win. They
Mhm.
beat the Sixers by 11, and then they lose to Minnesota in that weird game at home where like if the Rockets would have won that, then all of a sudden the Lakers, they you might flip in the 4 or 5,
Yeah.
and then they close out with Memphis. So it's like they didn't really beat anybody great. Right? All the teams that they beat, decent, playing okay. The Knicks is probably their best win.
Yeah.
But they also didn't really blow other than that. Like they didn't have any terrible performances. So I think they are beatable,
Mhm.
but it's very difficult. Like Vegas isn't going to favor the Lakers in this. They're simply going to look at Luka's out, AR is out. The Rockets should win the game. But that's different from, I think, what you were saying. I think the Lakers can win a couple of games to at least elongate the series, and then you hope that you get one of your two guys back.
Hmm.
And that's so I'm not like picking the series yet because I don't know. Is Luka going to come back in game four? Is he going to come back in game five? Is he not going to come back at all? That
Hmm.
is a massive swing. Like, think about the inverse. What if Kevin Durant was the one that was out right now, and Amen Thompson was out? And then you'd be
Hmm.
thinking, all right, well, Tari Eason, I guess, is going to start, and then more Reed Shepard, more
And then
Şengün.
Dorian
You know,
Finney-Smith.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like you're kind of you're like, all right, well, you could that team win a game? Could they win at home, games one or two? Yes, but you're going to favor the Lakers, who I think you would have favored regardless if their two guys were healthy. So it's very difficult to I think to pick the Lakers
Hmm.
without knowing what that result's going to be. But I think we can agree that they have enough to make these games interesting.
For
And
sure.
it's not just a prerequisite, oh, Houston for sure is going to come in and win games one and two because Luka and Austin are out. I don't think it's that.
Nah, for sure. And I totally agree with you. We can definitely elaborate more on this on the second half of the episode today. But before we do any of that, we have to let my partners at Pachanga give you guys a quick word.
At Pachanga Resort Casino, you can rock and roll, sip and slide, twist and shout. Play your perfect combination at Pachanga Resort Casino, official Indian gaming sponsor of the Lakers.
All right, what's going on? Welcome back to Lakers Talk Daily. As you guys can see, I'm joined by our favorite, Mike Trudell, Lakers sideline reporter. You can always catch him with us on the DeMarco and Travis afternoon show. You can catch him on the morning show. Trudell is just one of those. He's just very versatile. Are you
Hmm.
are you versatile on the basketball court as well, Trudell? Like, can you step out, knock down a 3-point ball? Can you get to the rack a little bit? Like, you got a little bit of game to you.
I played point guard in high school. I played 3 years, so I varsity my junior year, and then senior year, once I started getting recruited for soccer, and I had to not play my senior year, which was very difficult.
Hmm.
But it was kind of like the combination of the college coach was like, hey, here are the things that we need you to do to get ready for the next season. That's all of that is to say, I was okay. I was good enough to play minutes. I was kind of a drive and kick point guard.
Whoa.
I'll pick you up 94 feet. I had a nice little pull up from the elbow. Again, this
Okay.
was not pace and space time. There were not a lot of 3-pointers taken, right? Unless you were like your coach thought that you were a shooter.
Uh-huh.
We Our coach had our guards do post moves in practice still. Like this was still when that was like so I got the up and under. I got the drop step baseline, the drop step to the middle, right? And that proved to be valuable in college because we go play pickup, and the shortest guy on the other team is going to guard me because I'm 5'9". I just
Yeah.
take him inside and do work
Ah,
in there,
that's
and then
crazy,
make
man.
make somebody like you come over and help, and then we kick
Yeah.
it out. So that's what we would do. So that's so I was all right, but I soccer was my main sport, and then baseball my second, basketball
For
was
sure.
number three.
By the way, when I played in college basketball, when I played at Orange Coast College, our coach over there, he legit made us just like how you were explaining how learning post moves as a smaller guard. He legit had us practicing like you said, drop step, hook shots. There was a moment in one of the games that he would praise everyone if you like using your opposite hand. So for me, using my left hand for a hook shot, I kid you not, I cannot make this up. This is a true story. There was one moment we were playing against Cerritos College, and I had a big on me, and I legit just did a left-handed hook in the middle of the paint, and I kid you not, it hit the side of the backboard. It had no chance to
Hmm.
go in there. And my coach
Okay,
legit looked at me and started clapping. Like, yes, that's what I want. He did not care if the bucket
he
went.
liked it.
Yeah, he just loved it. He just loved the effort. And I was like, this is where we're at right now at this point in the game. But yeah, this is a little quick story with that. But
Love it.
to elaborate more on this first round matchup against the Houston Rockets, and just to kind of see where the Lakers match up, we understand you're going to get what you're going to get out of LeBron James. We can honestly we know what we're going to get out of Marcus Smart. Who can we look at on the rest of this roster without Luka Doncic and Austin Reaves to step up more with their role? As far as like Rui, can we see more out of Rui? Do we expect more out of DeAndre Ayton, more out of Luke
No,
Kennard?
there you go. That the answer is Luke Kennard. I mean, I think Rui's going to do what he does. He may get more shots than he would. But Rui's pretty consistent. He's going to shoot like in the mid 40s from three. He's going to nail shots from the mid range. His rebounding, I think, could be better. That's one area that you always think about with Rui, like just given that kind of the size and the athleticism. But he doesn't always have like the greatest feel on the glass. But nonetheless, he's going to do what he does. I think the bigs are going to do what they do. Luke Kennard is the one that showed that he's got this other playmaking gear to him, and JJ Redick remembered it to a degree from Duke. I think that his Pistons days when Kennard was in Detroit earlier, he did more of it than people think.
Mhm.
But he was just not only was he good, he was excellent. Like we're talking about assist to turnover ratio, we're talking about getting to his little mid range pull up. Um, if somebody doesn't actually trace him out to the perimeter, he's going to fire right away. So to me, Kennard on offense alongside LeBron and Marcus Smart is the major key here, and I think that's what kind of keeps you having at least the minimum amount of shot creation that you need. The question, though, DeAndre, and this
Mhm.
is where I think it gets a little trickier, is Kennard. He's not gonna be the most impactful defensive player, and it gives opponents another kind of place to target, right on that side of the floor. And so I think that's the element that you worry about. So if you've got both Luke Kennard and Rui out there with the starting lineup, it's there's some places that Houston can try to manipulate on that side of things. But
Mhm.
offensively, I thought he was terrific.
And we saw those games where Luke Kennard had to step in and initiate the offense, get the guys set up in their respective spots on the basketball court because Marcus Smart was in out of that lineup. And I feel like adding Marcus Smart and him, getting back from his ankle injury, that adds another ball handler. Not saying Marcus Smart is the ideal primary ball handler that you need, but he can get you into your offense. He can get into the flow of things, and that can allow Luke Kennard to play off ball a little bit more because that's what the Lakers acquired Luke Kennard for. Is they needed another shooter on this team. They needed to have more spacing on the offense, and it was kind of hard for me to watch because like Luke Kennard had that triple double, against the Dallas Mavericks, but he shot 5 of 17. But then I also had to keep in mind is that he had the ball in his hands damn near majority of the game because they had no other primary ball handler to get them into their
Yeah.
offense. But and then everyone in the YouTube chat, I gotta throw this one at you because they love Bronny James. They really, really do, Trudell. And
Okay.
is there gonna be a moment that we're going to see Bronny James get a couple of minutes in this series against the Houston Rockets because he has been playing well. Like I'm not saying he's been playing like spectacular. He's not playing bad, but he's been solid. He's been solid in the
Yeah.
limited minutes that JJ Redick has put him in the lineup, and I feel like he's a good defender. He has to be a little more confident in his jump shot, being willing to take it, because they do have there's moments where he does have the open look, but other than that, like Bronny has been solid.
Yeah, so I think Bronny has proven clearly now that like you can put him on the floor and he can hang in there. Now, can he hang in at the playoff level? That's something that he or any rookie has to show. I mean, look, frankly, and look, we know the answer to this, but Victor Wembanyama to a very small degree has to show kind of all right. There's at least a little bit of a difference between the regular season and the postseason. So we haven't seen that yet. We don't know exactly how he's going to respond, but I wouldn't say that he's in that like the primary rotation just because you're going to extend everybody's minutes significantly. And like LeBron's first of all, you looked at the schedule, DeAndre. There's like 3 days between games multiple
Yeah.
times, which is perfect for LeBron James because I think that you're going to need to get a lot out of him in that context. But let's just pull up. I'm going to pull up the box from LA's last game, right,
Mhm.
against Utah. And so we know, I think the starters are going to remain the same, right? It's going to be LeBron, Rui, Ayton, Smart, Kennard. So there's your five. Now, all of those guys are going to play big minutes. Then off the bench, Jake LaRavia is your first guy. Like you're going there for sure. Jackson Hayes, you're going for sure. So that's seven. Now we're getting into that range of okay, so what are we doing next here? And this is where it's so tricky, right? Without Austin, without Luka, because you're with Rui and Luke Kennard stepping in the starting lineup, that would have been your nine.
Yeah.
So now you mentioned the name earlier in the show that I think, especially in this series, you need him. And I think that is Jared Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
I think you need just the energy, the athleticism, the rebounding, especially, you got to have him on the glass. And is that going to hurt your offense a little bit? Yes, it is, but that's okay. And then to me, the player that just because of sort of the shot creation deficit against this matchup, you might give a slight edge to Nick Smith Jr. Over Bronny because of the shot creation. But it's not like Bronny was playing rotation minutes over Nick Smith for
Mhm.
the last couple of weeks. I just think that most of that was while you still had AR and you still had Luka, and then you take Bronny's athletic pop, you take his defense, you take his transition play over Nick. But to me, that's part of why Nick makes the roster over Drew Timmy.
Mhm.
The only other
Yeah.
thing you could do with this is you could go bigger and you could play Maxi Kleba, who
Mm.
sometimes he can come in and he's great and he's setting Gortat screens and he's but other games he just doesn't quite have it. So
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
it's not a ridiculous argument to say that Bronny would be getting some minutes and I think at a bare minimum he will get a chance to see how he responds to playoff minutes.
And then the last one before we, close out the show today. And thank you for coming on today, Mike Trudell. Really appreciate it. Um,
Always.
the chat and everyone around just been asking about Deandre Ayton. And Deandre Ayton, to me personally, I feel like he is the biggest guy that needs to step up. Meaning, we've seen the comments about the Clint Capella. Okay, whatever. DeAndre Ayton had a really good month of March. He really, really did. As far as points, as far as rebounding, hell, even defending, protecting the rim. I thought DeAndre Ayton had a fantastic month of March. Honestly, the second half of the season has been good for him. Now, come this first round of playoffs, I just feel like there's been moments where DeAndre Ayton, like the ball, as far as LeBron James drawing two defenders and two defenders helping, and then the little dump pass to Ayton, the ball goes through his hands. As far as DeAndre Ayton not rim running and not hustling back, like stuff like that, like you can control that. I think DeAndre Ayton is the X factor. I think DeAndre Ayton needs to be that double guy. I feel like they're going to need more out of him scoring. I feel like even defensively, he's really got to take charge in that, being there on the help side, being able to protect the paint. He's also going to
Mhm.
have to do his job in rebounding. Like DeAndre Ayton is really, really important in this series against the Houston Rockets.
There's no doubt. I agree with you fully. I think he is the X factor. This has been a frequent source of debate, I know, for Laker fans and even for ball knowers. Sedano and I, who are usually pretty aligned, have not always been on the same page with Aiden.
Mm-hmm.
And my point has been, for what you're paying him, he's been absolutely fine. Now, you're not paying him to be a star center. You're not paying him to be 20 and 10 every night. But for what you're paying him to get 20 and 10 sometimes, which by the way, he just had 22 and 10 against Utah. Now, granted, that was against Utah. He had 21 and 5 at Golden State. He going back to you mentioned his month of March, right? 18 and 9 against Cleveland. He goes 12 and 7 against the Wizards. He has 13 again, 10 against the Pistons. He has 23 and 10 against the Bulls. Like he mixed in some good games. What did he do with Houston? He was 16 and 4 and then 7 and 11 with a couple of blocks. Like he's it just his hands, I think, slipped a little bit down the stretch, as JJ Redick mentioned, just as guys, especially that OKC game. And so he's got to improve the ball security. He's got to improve a couple of other things. But as long as he's just playing hard, rebounding, setting screens, and rolling hard to the rim, that's all you want from that spot. It's fine. It's not great. It's not going to win you the series, but you can't have that position lose you the series, which maybe it did against Minnesota last year when
Mm-hmm.
they just didn't have the guy that could hold up for a full game, which was only Jackson Hayes. Now you got Aiton and Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
and then like that should be enough to at least hold ground. And I think that's all we're asking from DeAndre Ayton, and I think he can do it, DeAndre.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I honestly, I say I think DeAndre Ayton is really, really important for the Los Angeles Lakers heading into this postseason. But to close out the show, is there any team that you are looking at right now, whether it's in the Western Conference, whether it's in the Eastern Conference, who you got your eyes on that could make, a potential run for a title this year? Is there any other team like the Pistons or looking at the
I got
West?
one.
Okay, what's going on?
Yeah,
Here, let's
this
talk.
I got the Spurs. All right, the Spurs are very interesting to me. I love Wemby. I would be hard pressed not to like if I my heart of hearts. I think he's been the second most valuable player this year. I actually think Jokic is still the best player. I think Shea is very close, and I totally get the argument for him, especially because of how many games OKC won. I just think that this the sort of the whole organization gets some credit for that. Much in the way that with Boston, I think like when you're really run that well from the top and the players all fit the way that you play, I don't isolate a Jaylen Brown or a Shea quite as much as I would Jokic, who kind of totally everything that Denver does is him. He's the one that gets all of his teammates involved on both ends. And I just think Wemby, it's hard to quantify what he does defensively. And then he also completely throws a wrench in what they do, the opponent can do defensively.
Mhm.
So if he can prove what I think he can, then the Spurs are already ready to roll. And that to me is the most intriguing watch, and I'm going to keep an eye on it. And I think that if you haven't gotten a chance to watch a ton of the Spurs and a ton of Wemby, go ahead, because if you're a basketball fan, if you're a ball knower, right, you're going to like it.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that one. But the show is coming to an end. The Lakers got the first round matchup against the Houston Rockets on Saturday. Let's see if they can get one at home.
Let's see.
Against the Houston Rockets. Mike Trudell, thank you so much for joining the show today. Really appreciate it, man. It's fun. I gotta have you on, more.
My man, appreciate you having me. We'll see you soon. All right.
All right, and you guys in the YouTube chat, thank you so much for always tuning in. My guys that are back the operation, back in the studio, thank you so much. But I will be talking to you guys tomorrow. As always, we out.
I appreciate you.